My name is Rachel Miyazaki. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the managing director with Rooted in Rights. I have olive skin and I have my hair tied up in a messy bun. I'm in my bedroom right now, and behind me, you can see my fish tank with some plants growing out of it. And I'm wearing a black sweatshirt.
Awesome. And I'm Clark Matthews, he, him. I'm the creative co-director at Rooted in Rights. And yeah, we want to make sure it's accessible to everybody. So as far as audio description goes, I have light skin, dark hair, a little bit of a beard, purple shirt. I'm here from my bookshelf in South Seattle. You know, the South Seattle apartment, because like there's my living room and there's my kitchen right behind me.
And I'm Vanessa Link. My pronouns are she and her, and I am just here to help with technical assistance, and I will be monitoring the chat. I am a white woman with short cropped blonde hair, and I am wearing a blue tie-dye shirt, and I have a nasal oxygen cannula, and you can kind of see that I'm in a power chair.
Just to make sure that we all can hear each other, it's good to raise your hand or use a raise hand function on Zoom if you're able before speaking, so that Vanessa can spotlight folks' video, so that way we can see who's talking if they're comfortable with it. Also, if you're more comfortable using the chat, feel free to chat away there. We're going to be keeping our eyes on that too. On the top left corner, am I pointing to your left? Or is it my flip? I can tell. Anyway, sorry. We have Otter AI, which is you can use to get a live transcript and also toggle on and off captioning. You can turn on side-by-side mode to make videos larger. That's underneath your view options, just to make sure you can see the presentation well. And this, as we said, this is being recorded. So but once we have it finished, we're going to edit out some of the discussion part and just keep the presentation in there. So feel free to say whatever you want to say. It's not going to exist on the internet forever. But if you have to miss a part, don't worry, you'll be able to catch up later. And please take a break as needed. We have some breaks built into the schedule today, but you know, do whatever you need to do to be here and be present in a way that works for you.
So today's agenda, we're going to go over storytelling as an advocacy tool, a little bit of what Daria went over last weekend, but in a kind of different sense. Identifying your issue, ask an audience, video format approaches. We'll take a short 10-minute break and then get into writing our 4-sentence scripts. Take another short 10-minute break and then go over some basic video information. And then we'll have around 10 minutes of question and answer at the end.
Some of our goals for today, primarily, we're here just to learn foundational skills to create a self-advocacy video based off of our personal experiences. And the goal is that by the end of the day, you have taken an idea about an issue you want to make a message about, and you should leave with an idea about how you can make that into a piece of video that you can use to advocate online and socially, you know, and make that statement more make that statement really shareable and well communicated. And then also, you know, learn about the different ways you can use storytelling with an overview on basic video production.
So Clark, Vanessa, and I are from Rooted in Rights, which is one of the programs of Disability Rights Washington. So what Rooted in Rights does is we help advocate through media production, specifically blog writing and video production. So we produce mostly videos for social media purposes. We have done short documentary films in the past. And we also have a Rooted in Rights blog. So we're always accepting ideas for blog pitches. You can submit your blog idea anytime. And we in order to create a more equitable experience, we pay all of our writers, all of our cast. So ideally, we want to hire disabled cast, we want to hire disabled writers, and we as a team, so all of our staff on Rooted in Rights identify as disabled as well. So we truly produce, media for and by people with disabilities. And we're based in Seattle, but we also have remote staff as well.
So we use storytelling and media as an advocacy tool to kind of complement the legal advocacy that DRW does as a whole. And I think using media is really powerful, especially for a disability movement, for a variety of reasons. It helps change the mainstream narratives. As we were just saying, as we were getting started here, so often disability stories are rarely told in media, and when they are, they're usually told pretty poorly by people who don't actually have that experience. So by creating the media that we want to see, it's a good way to kind of like shift the conversation. We have some examples of that we'll be sharing later. Storytelling, video storytelling can also provide a face to issues, which can make people feel much more connected. I think that's really important with disability work, because so often, you hear about all these, policies and Social Security and Medicaid and all this kind of things that just sound like, bureaucratic wonkery. But knowing how that impacts actual people. Like we did a campaign during in 2017, 2018, when Medicaid was under threat, and they were talking about the importance of saving the pre-existing condition protections, and we started hashtag. And you just heard this phrase being used pretty clinically. People with pre-existing conditions. We started hashtag campaigns. I'm a pre-existing condition, just to let people know, like, these aren't these faceless, entities out there. They're the people they're your friends, they're your family, they're you. So providing face is really, really important. It can also, address misconceptions or misinformation. Again, we're not taught disability history in school yet. We're working on that in Washington State. But there's a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of ignorance out there. And so we as disabled folks, as people doing disability advocacy work, we're the best people to correct that and get the right information out there. And lastly, video storytelling is really helpful for amplifying underrepresented communities within movements. So that can be both the disability movement as a whole, being underrepresented within the larger social justice discussions that are happening, in our country and around the world, quite frankly. And then also, though, populations within the disability community that are marginalized way too much. If we're talking about, blind and indigenous people of color with disabilities, queer people with disabilities, not just, I know as like a white male in a wheelchair, like I'm the one on the parking sign, but there need to be more faces at the table and more images of what disability looks like, because sadly, we can't all just be me. That's really not the way it works. It's a real diversity and a beautiful spectrum of folks. And there's a difference, though, between, advocacy storytelling and personal storytelling. And so Rachel talked to that. Oh, and sorry. And Vanessa just shared in the chat a link to where folks can submit a blog pitch of your own on our website. So if you have, it can be a piece that you've already written, and you can send that our way, or if you just have an idea and you want to work with our editor-in-chief, Ilmi Ladau, who's done great work, she can help you develop that into a full piece. And again, it's a paid gig. So click that, use it for yourself, and please share it with your friends.
Great. So I'm not sure if everyone was able to attend last weekend's workshop, but one of the things we discussed is what makes an advocacy story, and kind of comparing it to other types of information sharing or storytelling. So when you think about something like a news report, that's kind of just sharing the facts of what happened and sharing information. compared to maybe you're venting to your friend about frustrations that you have. But that's more to express yourself and that you're frustrated. What advocacy storytelling does is kind of blends those two together. So you're sharing information and informing people, and kind of humanizing these big picture issues and making it more personable. But also the main goal is that you want to encourage and motivate people to take some kind of action at the end to help you reach whatever goal you have, to either prevent something from happening or to make sure that a good thing continues to happen. So when you do an advocacy story, you kind of want to have this balance between tying in your personal experience of what happened to you, and making people connect on an emotional way to your story, but also having a connection to a larger issue. Because when we think about it, lots of the things that we as individuals have frustrations with, so many other people do as well. It can feel like we're alone in all of our frustrations, but a lot of these issues stem from systemic issues that, even if we try to fix it by ourselves, there are things in place that are just going to make it harder, on a whole for lots of people, including in the disability community.
So we're going to start with really big, basic question. What is the issue? And it doesn't have to be what is the only issue. As for the purposes of this conversation, it's just what's one topic you wish people had a greater awareness of and want to take action of. So what do you want to change? We find that, it can, when we're talking about putting a face on these issues, that it's really helpful to help people feel, get inside of that experience. And you can do that by thinking about a particular moment in time for you that ties that issue, and how did it make you feel? What concerns, worries, or other thoughts did you have? Really, show people what discrimination feels like, rather than just tell somebody that something's wrong. Um, and we can also, it's important to make the personal connection clear without giving so much detail that what you're asking people to do gets lost in the process. Going back to Rachel's point about, it needs, for adaptive storytelling, the personal needs to balance out with the larger systemic issue at hand. So keeping it as concise as possible. It's kind of like haiku poetry, where you're trying to get as much meaning in as few words as possible.
Yeah. So when you think about, what if I ask you, who do you want to see or access your video, you would probably think everyone. Like, the more people that know about it, the better. But we found, particularly for advocacy videos, it really helps to consider who can be the best person or the best group of people that can best help you get to your end goal and get those changes made that you're looking for. So often we think that's your representative or your legislator. But in addition to that, you can think about, someone like your legislator might be difficult to get in contact with. You might try to write a letter, send a online message to them, and maybe hear back. I know sometimes when my family is written to their legislators, they don't get a response back at all. So it's kind of like you don't know if they've read it and things like that. So to add to that, you can also take an approach like video making, where you can spread the word to their constituents, maybe other people in your community that can also share their stories related to the issue, that larger systemic issue that you're trying to change, and help amplify your message. So, for example, if you are frustrated because the park at your local, or playground at your local park isn't accessible, and you know, write a letter to your legislator, you could also create a advocacy video to share your experience and what not having an accessible playground as a kid was like for you and why you want that to be changed. And also encourage other people in your community to shared their own stories about what having an accessible playground would mean to them. So I feel like even for non-disabled kids, like it would be so great to have everyone be able to play with each other and not just certain people. So again, the more specific, the better. And sometimes that you get into a place worrying like, oh, if you only target that group, like it won't be as effective. But I think there's certain strategies to take when you're doing advocacy video making.
Yeah, and I think two other things to keep in mind is a bit of a balance here. When talking to your audience and thinking what your message is going to be, need to account for, based on who your audience is, what background information and context do they need to understand the issue, and what information do they already have? For example, here we say you might need to explain what SSDI stands for and provide a basic overview. So often when we're making, when there's a disability policy bill that comes up and we want people to like, oh man, we need everyone to like chime in and let their legislators know how to vote on this issue. The first step is you need to back up a bit and recognize like those people don't even know what the hell this policy is in the first place. So let's make sure we explain it first, give people the proper context, and then send them on their way. Now, so it's important to both make sure people have enough information where they can take meaningful action, while at the same time keep it clear and succinct. Having a rambling 12, 15, 20-minute video, people probably aren't going to sit and watch me talk for that long, aside from present company excluded. So, trying to figure out how to use as much economy of language. So there's less chance for people to get lost and confused. You don't want, your message to get lost by just way too much language and unnecessary material, when really you can keep it short and sweet. It will probably get through to people a little bit more. So speaking of, what we want our message to be, what are we asking our audience to do?
So when we say what is your ask, we're talking about what, like Clark said, what do you want your audience or what do you want people to do after watching your video and learning about your story? So some examples, if you can't include all the details of, even systems in our country are really complicated, everything from insurance to cash benefits to, education system. So even though you don't want to include too much information in your video, you can at the end encourage people to learn more by visiting a website where you can include other links for further reading for background information. Like we talked about, you can encourage other people to share their own story using a specific hashtag, and that way you can kind of have a collection of stories related to that issue. And again, you can encourage people to, as a constituent, contact their legislator about that issue.
So next, we're gonna real quickly just say a few words about kind of what video format you can use to kind of approach this message, and thinking about two takes that we normally have. Is we have what we call our direct-to-camera videos and our more produced videos. So a direct-to-camera is just, literally exactly what it sounds like, where you just turn on your camera and make a direct plea to people, tell them the issue, tell them what needs to be done about it, and hit stop. While a more produced video is something would have maybe multiple people involved, could have graphics, it could have more background footage, B-roll, and really kind of illustrate the issue a little bit more. So what's the best strategy? Well, at Weird Nights, we think about we're trying to decide what format we're going to go with. It depends on a couple things. How much time do we have to work on this? If it's something that just needs to get out there right away, well, we're not going to have time to go around and interview a whole bunch of people. Then another key question, though, is who is our audience and what type of video is most effective to reach them? I think depending if we're trying to educate people outside the experience, if it's be it legislators or a segment of the general public, you know, if they don't have a first person understanding of the issue, will probably be more likely to go in a more um, produced format so they can really kind of understand the issue a little bit more. Versus if we have something where, like, hey, disabled people, there's a horrible law coming, all hands on deck now. That's something where I can just hop on a camera, look into the, hit record and just make a quick plea and send it out. It's more of a, yeah, like a emergency call than it is like necessarily a creative storytelling video. So we have two examples that we can play and just again show the contrasting difference between the two. This is from a few years ago when the federal House of Representatives was looking into passing a bill that would add um, increased mandatory waiting periods for ADA violation actions. And so we teamed up with the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund out of the Bay Area and the Center for American Progress, just to build. Again, this is just kind of like a throw a signal up, get people paying attention, and using around the hashtag hands off my ADA. Let's see if it works now. Hi, I'm Clark Matthews with Rooted in Rights. In case you didn't know, Congress is getting ready to vote on a bill called H.R. 620, which has been designed to take the power out of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. That's why we're using social media to tell Congress and the rest of America that they're not going to get away with watering down the most important, far-reaching piece of civil rights legislation of the past 30 years. What you can do is use the hashtags #HandsOffMyADA and Stop HR 620 to share your story now. Take a picture of yourself holding one of these signs you can download at rootedinrights.org/HandsOffMyADA. And be sure to fill it out so you can let people know, because of the Americans with Disabilities Act, I know that my rights are civil rights. If HR 620 passes, it will be easier than ever for businesses that we use every day, shops, hotels, restaurants, public bathrooms, anywhere that provides public accommodations, to violate the rights of people with disabilities. That makes me pissed off. The ADA is worth protecting because the ADA protects us. Tell your representative now to keep their hands off my ADA. Share this video. So, even into the very explicit ask, what we're asking people to do is share this video and spread the message. In addition to having that hashtag and those graphics people could print out, I also created a frame that people could use on their social media profile pictures. So those were populated around a little bit. So the second video was the one actually we didn't make. This is one that some workshop participants made when Rachel and Vanessa and Courtney and other folks on our team, and Alexa from our team, ran a program with the University of Washington's Do It program for students with disabilities in high school. Wilbur County Professional Development Group, and we had a week to, Monday through Friday, 2 hours. Is it 2 hours a day, Rachel? It's super crammed, going from concept to finished product, and this group did a great job with theirs.
Title screen: Accommodations for unseen issues. Two people walk down a hallway.
When we don't get the accommodations we need, it makes our lives harder.
Co-directors, co-authors, and editors Finn Kurtz and Jordan Butke speak to camera.
Hi, I'm Finn, and this is Torin.
We're both people with almost invisible disabilities.
Even though our disabilities oftentimes aren't immediately noticeable, we still need accommodations.
Accommodations are a combination of strategies and devices that help make our everyday lives more accessible.
For example, because of my muscular disability, if there isn't a railing, or if a railing is obstructed, I can't get up most stairs.
Because of my sensory disability, I can't properly function when I have more sensory input than my brain can process. This happens whenever I'm in a noisy classroom, restaurant, or other loud space.
A teacher speaks to Torin in a classroom.
Give me those headphones. We're not supposed to be listening to music in class.
I'm not. I need these because of my sensory issues. If it gets too loud, I'll shut down.
That's not a real thing. Give me your headphones.
Often, because our disabilities aren't immediately visible, people don't even think about giving us the accommodations we need.
Sometimes people don't even believe us when we say we're disabled or need an accommodation.
This makes things more difficult for us.
Share this video. Together we can increase acceptance of disabilities of all kinds, visible or not.
Written, directed, and edited by Finn Kurtz and Torrin Petke.
Awesome. Thank you. So I know we had, so again, you can't see the two different approaches. And I think, based on what the audience was, what the general ask was, how specific it is, can really indicate, what's the best way to handle a certain video.
For lots of people, when we think about writing a script, we kind of default approach it like writing an article or writing an essay. So, thinking about the introduction and the body paragraphs and the conclusion. But for video writing, especially because you want to keep it concise, we found that kind of thinking about the foundational points from the beginning and then building off of that later with more details is helpful. So we thought that using these 4 questions is a great place to start. So the first question is, who are you? The second question is, what happened? The third question is, what did you need? And the fourth question is, what are you asking for now? And, at least from the start, you'd want to use around 1 to 2 sentences per question, just because you don't want to think too much about details and explaining things at this stage. You just want to think about what is the foundational, skeleton that's going to, be the basis of this video that I want to make sure that gets included in the video. So these questions can seem kind of vague at first glance. So I wrote an example. So the first question, who are you? This is where you kind of want to introduce who you are. And, like David said, lots of people with invisible disabilities, it might appear like we're just non-disabled people talking about disability issues. So I think an example could be, my name is Rachel and I have narcolepsy. It's hard for me to wake up and stay awake. So again, just keeping it really simple, not going into the depths about what narcolepsy is, but just providing a basis of what I want to include. Second question, what happened? So an example could be, I was overworking myself at work to conform to ableist expectations. I was emotionally and physically worn out, but I thought this is just the way things are. What did I need is the third question. So I could write, I didn't know about my rights to reasonable accommodations until I did my own research years later. My supervisor and human resources staff never discussed this with me before then. And then the last question, what do you want people to do? What do you need now? I could write, employers should provide clear information to all employees. Everyone should know about rights to reasonable accommodations, whether or not they appear to have disabilities. So you can kind of see, these are just like a few sentences, but you can kind of see how it flows already. And I think from this point, I can start to add more details. Maybe I'll talk about more about what it's like to have narcolepsy, but also, what it made me feel like when I was confronted with those ableist expectations, especially as someone that, didn't know about disability community until way later. And like, I think lots of people feel alone and that feel like their disability is bad before they realize like, no, the systems, what's the issue here. So now we're going to move on to more of the video production part of our workshop. And this is just going to be a really brief overview. We have more detailed guide in our storyteller's guide that was sent out in the CDAN email and will be sent out again in a future CDAN email that goes through all of what we discussed up until this point and even more details on video production. So first, let's talk about video accessibility. So at Rooted in Rights, obviously we value accessible media. And for video, we have a few best practices that we incorporate into our workflow for all of our videos from the beginning. So one is audio description, also known as AD. And this is a spoken description of key visual information that can't be understood by the soundtrack alone. So you might have heard this during, I don't watch the Super Bowl, but some of the Super Bowl commercials had audio description. But basically, this is a voiceover that's separate from a narrator, separate from the host or the cast. And what this person is saying is verbally describing visual information, for people that can't see the video, whether that's folks that are blind or low vision, or maybe I'm sure we've all been at a conference where we can't really see the projected slides that well. But with audio description, that helps ensure that folks that aren't able to see the media can still have a similar experience and still get key information. So next is captions. So there are two types of captions. One is called open captions, and these are just captions that are burned into the video and are just there. You can't turn them on and off or customize them. The other type is closed captions, which most people are familiar with. These are captions that can be turned on and off by the viewer. So Facebook has this, some televisions and service providers have this. And you can also sometimes customize the size of the text or the color contrast of the text as well. So there are benefits to both of these in different situations. So for example, if there's a platform like Instagram where there's no way to upload a separate caption file to use closed captions, you could create open captions for your video so that even though there's not a way technically to add closed captions, there still can be captions for the users. And then transcripts, these are a text version of the media content. So that includes the captions written out, sound effects, dialogue, but also the audio description written out. So when we're watching a video and there's captions, typically we just see, audio description, the words audio description in parentheses or brackets while the audio description is being spoken. But for a transcript, that audio description is written out in a written form. So you would have the full sentence there. And the transcripts are so that people, that use screen readers or people that don't have fast enough internet to load your video can still essentially access and experience the video in a written form. So that includes, again, everything that's spoken, all of the sound effects, description of the music, and description of other key visual information. So this can usually be a separate plain text document that you can include a link to, but on social media, you can also just copy and paste it as the first comment and then pin that comment so that it's always at the top for folks. And transcripts are also useful if you've ever listened to podcasts and you remember there is this one great discussion they had, but I can't remember like what time point it was. Like you can just use the search function on a transcript and like, oh, I remember they talked about chocolate ice cream, and you can search chocolate ice cream and it'll point you right there rather than having to listen through the whole podcast again.
Great. And so once you make sure that your video is accessible, we're talking about audio description and describing what's on screen. It's a way to transition to, what is going to be on screen, right? So B-roll is the term we use to describe, background footage is another word for it. Basically, any shot that is not someone speaking to camera. So it could be, a wide shot of you, meaning, not just you looking at your camera, but maybe you in your room, which is actually, I guess, pretty much the only place we can go during COVID right now. Or, walking outside or whatever. B-roll could be a still photograph. Could be, big wide pictures of buildings. Can be shot of just, your feet walking on a sidewalk or your wheels rolling along, anything that's kind of add some visual interest, but also kind of helps show what you're talking about rather than just telling people what you're talking about. It's good to supports what you're already saying, can give a sense of place, can evoke emotion, and illustrate, the words that you're saying. So yeah, there's not much more to say. It's pretty straightforward, and it's helpful, when you're watching maybe TV on your own to think, and you see like a commercial and there's someone talking to camera, and they cut away. Think about, oh, okay, that's a B-roll shot, and that's back to the host, and there's another example of B-roll, and just thinking about what visuals can help you make your argument and help people understand what it is you're talking about. So, and last panel we have editing.
Yeah, so now, at Rooted in Rights, we have kind of higher end cameras that we film with, but I think it's still important that folks don't discredit how important mobile video is and how accessible that is for folks, even folks that don't have film experience. So a lot of what we teach in our workshops is how to create video using your own mobile device, whether that's your smartphone or maybe you have a tablet. So some of the editing apps for those mobile devices that we recommend are KineMaster. So that's KineMaster. And that's a free app. So that's a great app if you're just getting into video editing. You can kind of play around with that and get familiarized before you try to move on to more advanced platforms. There's also Adobe Rush. This is made by Adobe, which Adobe makes really popular editing programs, like Adobe Premiere is a video editing program. So the first 3 exports of Adobe Rush are free, but after that you'll have to pay for a subscription. But it's also a great beginner app because it has built-in motion graphics that are pretty cool. Actually, the Duet students that we saw earlier, they edited that whole video by themselves on Adobe Rush on an iPad. And with both of these apps, you can record and add voiceover for audio description too. So you don't need a separate app to do that. And again, you can just use the phone that you shot your video on to record that voiceover too. So these are great starting points, if you want to get into video making, but don't want to buy a film camera, it's perfectly fine to use whatever you have. And I think, the benefit to that is, especially nowadays, we're seeing so many crucial moments that come from just regular everyday people's video from their phones and things like that. So I think there is a value of having that kind of raw, authentic kind of feel rather than a highly produced video. And that's all of our presentation. If you have any other questions, you can visit our website. It's www.rootedinrights.org. So www.rootedinrights.org. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Rooted in Rights.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.